Hello and welcome to video 3 of the mini-series on high note singing. This is part, I think, of what you've been waiting for, in that we're going to talk about cricothyroid dominant singing or head voice. But there's a little bit of a twist. I'm really fond of these twists because in truth, this is more about understanding it and the facility of it, though we're going to talk about facilitating this as well. You're going to find that the facility of this actually comes in the next video, which is on the zona di passaggio. But I don't want to give away too much of that. So anyway, let's talk about cricothyroid dominant singing. What is cricothyroid dominant singing? Why do I care? What is it used for? What? Why? Why bother? Okay. Well, let's begin, first of all, with the idea of a seamless voice that goes from low to high, right? Or something like that. I went from my chest voice, through my zona di passaggio, to my head voice, and back. So those high notes, the passages there, are my head voice. That is said to be voce piena in testa, the sound of chest voice in head voice. If we try to belt that out, there will be a greater noticeable difference in tone quality than if we apply a smooth transition across the registration events. Now, I'm not suggesting that we not belt, and I should also define what belting is, but I'm saying that the tone quality will be less consistent if you belt. You are said to be entering the call of the voice. You are increasing breath energy, and you are also increasing thyroarytenoid musculature activity in order to try to sing those high pitches. If you watched video 1 and video 2, keep in mind here, this area, the head voice, is the cricothyroid dominant singing voice. So, when we belt, we are preventing that transition from occurring, and we are increasing breath energy, and we are increasing engagement around the thyroarytenoid musculature in order to try to make it vibrate faster to get the right pitches instead of making the transitions. And again, that's cool, but it's going to be less consistent overall of a sound than if you make the transitions. And so, for those of us like myself that want to be able to do those kinds of things where it's very, very seamless and we are offered different options above the secondo passaggio, we learn to make this transition. And this is largely what most of my videos on YouTube are about. And that is also what this mini-series is about, is learning to reconcile the differences of the vowels as we ascend over the primo passaggio, over the secondo passaggio, and ultimately into our head voices. Now let's back up for a moment here and let's just go over the terms one last time. Well, of course I'm going to go over them many, many more times than just one last time. I don't even know why I said that. Primo passaggio is the point at we enter the zona di passaggio, or for female vocalists, that is the point at which you enter the middle voice range. The zona di passaggio is between the primo passaggio and the secondo passaggio. The secondo passaggio is the point at which we enter the head voice, or when we have cricothyroid dominant singing, where it is the dominant muscle group that is acting on the vocal fold. The secondo passaggio is often also referred to as the break, and the secondo passaggio is the break. I don't call it the break. That is very deliberate. The reason why is because I do not, for one moment, think that your voice is broken. I used to think my voice was broken, and it was called the break. And then I figured out that it wasn't. And that in and of itself, I think, is quite prohibiting, because I don't want to suggest that anyone's voice is broken. These are passages or pivot points that we have to navigate. So we navigate across the secondo passaggio based largely on what we do in our thyroarytenoid dominant singing voices and the zona de passaggio. The action of the cricothyroid muscles is to elongate the vocal fold so that thinning has already occurred by the time we get to the secondo passaggio, or it's just finishing up. The beginnings of it happen much lower, perfect fourth for male vocals. For female vocals, it varies widely from a fifth to as much as an octave, or a little bit more than an octave even. So that elongation begins at the primo passaggio and then ultimately finishes as we ascend across the secondo passaggio. Some people call this range falsetto. I disagree with that quite heartily, and the reason why is because it confuses this range of the voice with the actual falsetto range of the voice, and it also confuses the configuration of the vocal fold for us, because in a falsetto tone production there is an abduction and a dampening of the vocal fold. So if we have prepared for the secondo passaggio effectively, then we can retain that closure or adduction, as I introduced a little earlier in these videos, that adduction of the vocal fold. We can retain that. That, to a large degree, is what gives us the consistency of sound. Falsetto is when there is an abduction or separation. So abduction means moving away from the center line of the body. In falsetto, you have an abduction and a dampening, and that then shortens the vocal fold and you get higher pitches. The problem with this is that in this range of our voices, the range that's immediately above the secondo passaggio, that's not the optimal range for that, and so it comes off as being very airy. And so a lot of untrained vocalists, when they start to go over their secondo passaggio, will get that airy, falsetto-y kind of sound. That, that is falsetto. Like, that is a falsetto tone production. The vocal fold is configured to be falsetto. But even though there is a very, very definitive qualitative difference in the tone of my voice, that is not falsetto, because the vocal fold is adducted, A-D-D-U-C-T-E-D. It is adducted, it is closed. But obviously, there's a different tone quality there. I'm not doing anything to mask or to reconcile the differences of vowels. If I try a little harder, and I don't mean like try harder, but if I pay attention and I set up the transition a little better, then I get a more consistent tone quality as I go from my chest voice to my head voice and back to my chest voice. How do we do this? Quite a lot of practice, honestly. Quite a lot of practice. I think a little bit of theory. These videos in this little mini-series are the theory. There's not a lot of practice in these. There is a lot of this on the channel, and there's more of that coming. But for starters, really getting a firm idea of where the secondo passaggio is and getting used to going in and out of our head voices or cricothyroid dominant singing voices with an adducted or closed vocal fold, even if it doesn't sound the same. You, 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 you. Yes, you can hear that it doesn't sound the same. But for someone who has the habit of going you, 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 that is a step in the right direction. And that will facilitate doing different exercises, ultimately getting to scales, ultimately getting to where you've got consistent sound quality and good intonation, and everything else going back and forth across the secondo passaggio so that you can sing your songs and you have a choice. You can belt. You could still belt if you wanted to. That doesn't get removed for learning how to do this. You could do this though. You could also choose to have maybe not entirely consistent tone quality, but not a falsetto tone quality too. Playing around with the balance of things there, in my opinion, opens up our artistic voices and gives us more chances, more opportunities, more options. It's more colors in the palette. But if we have had the habit of belting, usually trying to learn to make a smooth and consistent transition across these registration events is the tricky part. Establishing a ducted head voice phonation is the first step in learning how to do this. The step after that is navigating the zona de passaggio more carefully. And I'm going to talk about that in the next video. Thank you as always for watching. Take really good care of your voices, enjoy singing, and I'll see you next time. Bye.